3, 4, 1. This is a show with no particular niche, baby. It's always about hanging out. Maybe we'll laugh at some stuff, maybe we'll learn something new, but it's always about hanging out, me and you. Hi, hello, and welcome to That Thing with James, a bi-weekly podcast about nothing in particular. I'm your host, James, and today we are going to talk about some myths about the Middle Ages. Oh yeah. Were they all just pure and pious? Did knights follow a code of chivalry? Or was it really just a bunch of mud and incest and constant rape, like the George R.R. Martin stories would have you believe? We'll kind of paint the picture of rape equals reality, right? Well, there's a lot more to it. And we're going to get into that stuff today. Yeah, because medieval and Renaissance history has long been an interest of mine. I am indeed a fantasy girly, a sci-fi boy, and we're going to get into that stuff. But first, quick business. If you didn't know, you're about to know, I have a Patreon for this show with over 100 bonus episodes available on it. You can get access to that stuff at patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. That is that thing with, I tripped myself up. Hold on. Patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. It's written in the episode description. $5, bare minimum entry, gets you access to all 100 plus bonus episodes. And to those of you who are already patrons, thank you so much. You rock. Once again, patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. As far as my show email, subreddit, and socials, you can also find that stuff written in the episode description. If you're watching this on video, it's also appearing at the bottom of the screen at the Chiron. Yes, the Chiron. Ooh, sonorous Chiron. Oh my God. That's a good word. So, and then audio listeners, of course, this is also a show on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you may notice that I am wearing a bandana on my head. Why? Couple reasons. One, it's functional because I don't have one of those elastic hairbands or metal hairbands to keep my hair out of my face, because my hair is now at a certain length where I can tuck it I can tuck my bangs behind my ears, but it comes untucked, especially because I have springy hair. I have a little bit coarse, quite curly hair, and it springs out from behind my ears at this length and just keeps tickling my nose, getting in my eyes, and I wear glasses most of the time. These days I don't have a lot of reason to wear my contacts, although I'll wear them occasionally, but my hair gets in my glasses, and the stuff I've got in my hair gets onto my glasses, so I'm constantly cleaning my glasses, and then the second I put them back on, they're smudged again from the stuff in my hair, so I'm wearing the bandana to keep it out of my hair. That's the functional reason. The second reason is because pirates are fucking cool, man. Pirates rock. They're way cooler than cowboys. What are cowboys? I'm just going to walk around. Yeah, I'm a little country boy. I'm a little cowboy. Riding around my cowboy boots, my country boy boots. Yeehaw. Riding around my assless chaps. I'm cowboy. Pew, pew. I'm going to get you, outlaw. Oh, no. I'm a little cowboy. Hope you don't catch me in my assless chaps. I'm a little cowboy, little country boy. Meanwhile, pirates are like, we've got democracy. We've got booty. We've got better living conditions than most sailors. That ought to be an episode, because it's something I recently learned, that pirates ate better and were generally much more healthy than your average sailors, including and especially above military, above Navy sailors. And I presume, I've not read into this, but I presume it has something to do with their structure, with their hierarchy structure. I've done an episode on pirate code, and that also got into how they structured themselves. And really, it was an extremely democratic thing. You've got your captain and your first mate, but the captain and first mate, especially the captain, can be vetoed, no fucking problem, can be kicked out if people don't like them. All sorts of stuff. Pirates rock. And so, wearing a red bandana on your hair, if you can rock it without, looking like white trash, if you look like a pirate instead, it helps to have some like tattoos, but not white trash tattoos. You got to have I've got like an American traditional tattoo here. This is my first one, an anchor, and with the number 13 on it, purely because it was a Friday the 13th tattoo. And some places will give you a big discount on tattoos on Friday the 13th. And that's what I got. And one time my brother-in-law was like, you were in the Navy, in the Navy, in the Navy. And I was like, no, it's a Friday the 13th tattoo. I like pirates and shit. Oh, no, la, you in the Navy. So that's how that went. But then I've got another tattoo on my right arm and then one on my chest that I designed myself with some help from a dear friend. And I've actually got episodes where I was getting those two tattoos on this show. You can watch it on my YouTube channel. These were sigils, and they're kind of piratey looking. And I've got an earring. Yeah, I got a hoop in my ear. It's not a big gold hoop. Something else I heard. I don't know if it's true, but it sounds good. The reason why, pirates stereotypically would wear a hoop, earring, or earrings, a gold earring or earrings, is that it would cover the cost of their own burial and perhaps funeral should something, unfortunate happen to the sailor. It's functional and fashionable, just like the bandana on my head. And the eye patch thing, it's not because they all only had one eye. It's that, when you're up on the deck, generally it's kind of bright because you're out on the ocean and it may very well be sunny outside. But then when you go below deck, it's dark. And what happens? It takes time for your eyes to adjust. And the larger the contrast between the light and the dark, the longer it takes for your eyes to adjust. Unless one eye doesn't have to adjust because one eye was already covered with an eye patch. So when you're doing your pirate business up on the deck and you gotta go below deck to do some other pirate business, when you start taking those stairs down or perhaps a ladder down, you just switch the eye patch over onto the other eye, and that the eye that was previously covered above deck doesn't have to adjust to the dark. Hey, functional and fashionable. But that's not what this episode's about. I'm going to take a sip of coffee, and then we will get into, I believe it was 20 myths about the Middle Ages. Be right back. Okay, let's get into it. This article is on a website I had never heard of before. It's called medievalists.net. Medievalists.net. And apparently there's courses you can take. They've got podcasts and all sorts of stuff. They got a Patreon. You sign up for membership, yada, yada, yada. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I like this kind of stuff. I might spend more time on this website. I'm glad I stumbled upon it while looking up myths about the Middle Ages, because I knew there were myths about the Middle Ages. When we think Middle Ages, traditionally, in current times, we think illogical, superstitious, dirty, nasty, brutal, torture chambers, that sort of thing. But was it really like that? Not really. History, the way it is treated, at least in most of the Western world, because that's what I'm most familiar with, because I was born and raised in the white Western world. History has a tendency to be flattened, like criminally flattened, and of course whitewashed. But also, the further back you go, it's whitewashed, but also really flattened, big time. And we forget that we're not necessarily, human beings now in 2024, the year I'm recording this and will be releasing this episode. Humans in 2024 are not really any more or less human than those who existed 2,000 years ago. People have always been people. People have always been extremely intelligent and resourceful. And more often than not, the flattening that happens within history is simply a way for the ruling class, which still definitely exists, to sort of just bullshit people who have to work for a living into getting some, pitiable ideas about what life used to be like, to sort of get those who must work for a living to accept poorer living conditions, poorer quality of life, that sort of thing. It's beneficial to titans of industry, to fat cat capitalists, to political and economic insiders. It is, captains of these things. It is beneficial to them to bullshit everybody else into whatever way possible that will, get the workers to stop asking questions and just accept flatness, accept flat history, accept flat existence, get back to work, give me more. So let's get into some of these myths, okay? Title, 20 Myths About the Middle Ages. Does not say who wrote this, so we'll just get into it. People have some very wrong ideas about the Middle Ages. Here is a list of 20 of the strangest misconceptions about the medieval period, or if you want to pronounce it, medieval period. They often come about to portray the people as being ignorant, cruel, and unsophisticated. Hey, what did I say? Number 1, that medieval people thought the earth was flat. I knew this. Babies, I'm telling you, I know a lot of this stuff already because I used to believe this shit because it was the shit I was fed. And then just out of curiosity, I found out that the shit was bullshit and not a good, nutritious meal. Anyway, virtually every medieval scholar believed the earth, the world, was round. In fact, they assumed that the earth was perfectly round. In reality, it's slightly elliptical. And one scholar named Abu Rayhan Biruni, who lived from 973 to 1048, was able to figure out the radius of the earth using mathematics. I think the Egyptians figured that out first, but whatever. His estimate of it being 6,339 kilometers was only off by 31 kilometers. However, in the 19th century, it was widely reported that people in the Middle Ages thought the earth was flat because it made for a good example of how backward the period was believed to be. A lot of the blame should go to Washington Irving, an American writer. In 1828, he wrote, A History of the Life and Voyages of Christopher Columbus, which reads like a biography of the explorer, but was in part highly fictionalized. One of the made-up sections has so-called experts claiming the world is flat. Because Irving's book was so popular, his fictitious claim about this idea became widely accepted. Yeah, there was a whole thing that, so-and-so was it Columbus or someone else, was scorned by the church and exiled because he suggested that the earth was round. That is bullshit. It's pure bullshit. On to number 2. That prima, P-R-I-M-A-E, prime noctis actually happened. I'm not sure exactly what that is. In 19th century France, that would be the 1800s, it became a popular belief that lords had several long-standing quote-unquote rights over their peasants, including the right to have sex with any bride the first night after her wedding. There are no recorded instances of this happening in the Middle Ages. When people wrote about the prime noctis, the first night, okay. In later centuries, they would say that it once happened in the Middle Ages, but that it vaguely took place. Let me start over. They would say that it once happened in the Middle Ages, but that it vaguely took place a long time ago and in places that were very remote. Yeah, the thing with peasants and their relationship to lords of the land, it was not so much a worship kind of thing. Really, peasants had a lot more rights than you may have heard. A lot more rights, a lot more freedom. Onward to number 3. That Vikings wore horned helmets. And that Vikings dressed like in the show, with armor and muscles and all this shit anyway. If anything, Vikings dressed rather gaily. I use the word in a grown-up way. They dressed rather gaily. They wore a lot of fabrics, a lot of bright colors and sashes and stuff like this. But let's see what this says. Vikings and other medieval warriors never wore horned helmets. It would have been a very dumb idea for a Viking to use something like that in battle, as such a helmet could easily be knocked off. It was until the 19th century that some artists started, maybe they meant wasn't, until the 19th century that some artists started to imagine that things like this existed. One key person in this development was Carl Emil Doppler, 1824 to 1905, a costume designer who started including horned helmets in famous operas. His headgear even had feathers. His depiction soon became very popular, and others copied him. I think the first memory I have of encountering the horned helmet thing was from Fantasia, the original Fantasia. I watched that VHS quite often. I loved it. Especially, my favorite parts were the Sorcerer's Apprentice and the Hall of the Mountain King. Oh, I loved how dark and dramatic that was, where the fucking demon rises up out of the volcano or whatever, and there's bats and shit. Yeah. So did that start my affinity for gothic type shit, or was it just already there? Who knows? Number 4, that there were elaborate torture devices in the Middle Ages. There are many different gruesome torture devices, including the Iron Maiden, the Pear of Anguish, and the Breast Ripper. However, while many that are claimed to be medieval torture devices, they were actually invented centuries later. sometimes as a kind of tourist attraction. Some objects had much more mundane uses. The so-called pair of anguish may actually have been a sock stretcher. Also, if you think medieval people got tortured in dungeons, you may want to read this. It's a link to another article that I'm not going to get into in this episode. Number 5, that medieval thinkers argued over how many angels could dance on the head of a pin. There is a claim that medieval thinkers argued over silly and useless notions such as how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. However, there is no such example of a medieval scholar actually writing about this subject. The question was actually invented in the 17th century as a way to mock medieval theologians. Number 6, that chastity belts were used to prevent women from having sex. The story goes that when medieval lords went on crusade, they would make sure their wives would not have sex by enclosing their waists in a locked belt. The truth is that chastity belts were never used in the Middle Ages, but we do have a depiction of something that looks like chastity belts in the way that in the works of a military engineer named Conrad Kaiser. He writes about it, quote, "This is a girdle of Florentine ladies, iron and hand, that is closed from the front," unquote. Historians have judged this to be a joke of Kaiser, directed at Florentine men. After the Middle Ages, we do get stories of urban legends about chastity belts, and by the 19th century, people were making fake versions that they claimed were from the medieval period. And I'm sure they had a lot of kink play with that as well. People have been kinky forever. Number 7, that medieval people drank wine and beer because the water was so polluted. While people avoided polluted water in the Middle Ages, there were many sources of clean water which would be used for drinking. They also understood that it was healthy to drink water, although it was not as tasty as beer or wine. Number 8, and I've never heard of this place before, but it's a really cool looking place. I'm probably going to put a picture of it up on the video for this episode, that the Neuschwanstein Castle is a medieval castle. There are, by the way, a lot of quote-unquote medieval castles that were built like in the late 1800s, by the way. The Neuschwanstein Castle is not like Wolfenstein. The Neuschwanstein Castle has been described as one of the great medieval castles of Europe. However, Ludwig II of Bavaria began building the castle in 1869, what I tell ya. Like many others in Europe, Neuschwanstein was based on romantic ideas of what a castle would look like, but actually has a little in common with a real medieval fortress. Number 9, that people did not live past 30 years old in the Middle Ages. Yeah, people were living to like 80 and 90, by the way. But let's see what this says. It has long been stated that life expectancy for a medieval person was about 30 years old. This does not mean that a person was considered old or about to die when they turned 30. If a medieval person survived to adulthood, he would likely live into his 60s or 70s, and they would not be considered old until at least the age 50. Life expectancy rates, however, were lower in the Middle Ages because there was a much greater chance that an infant or child would die because of illness or disease than in modern times. Yeah, so there you go. Number 10, that medieval people did not use cutlery. Yeah, you get the picture that they just like eat with their hands, maybe have a knife, maybe a 2-pronged fork, because if it's a 3-pronged fork, then it's, the devil's pitchfork. Well, let's see what this says. Medieval people did not have to eat everything with their hands. Knives and spoons were common throughout the Middle Ages, while the fork goes back to the 4th century in the Byzantine Empire, which, by the way, the Byzantine Empire didn't really exist. It was just the Roman Empire. And the whole concept of Byzantine was a whitewash topic introduced, 1800s, I forget which, to cover up the Ottoman and other Muslim empires that were extremely fucking advanced. That'll be a totally other episode, but let's see what this says. Its use, utensils, or the fork, its use spread to Middle East and Persia. By the 11th century, it was common in Italy, and gradually other parts of Europe adopted it as part of their tableware too. So we've got, I think, 9 more left. I need another sip of water. Just a second. All right, babies, we're in the home stretch. Let's go on to number 11, the myth that medieval people never traveled. The idea that medieval people would be born, grow up, and die without ever leaving their village was very unlikely. Many different records show that people were traveling around and even moving to different parts of a country. European peasants would go on pilgrimages and visit churches and monasteries in their country and overseas. Within the Islamic world, the religious requirements of doing a pilgrimage to the city of Mecca ensured that many medieval Muslims undertook long trips. We have many accounts of their travels. Beyond this, there were many other reasons for medieval people to travel, including for business or as soldiers. It was not uncommon for people to emigrate to different countries. And as I'm reading this, I'm still catching a few myths within this myth-busting article. A lot of it has to do with the Islamic world. But again, that'll be a different episode. Number 12, that medieval people were always dirty and had terrible personal hygiene. Calling someone dirty or unclean is a long-standing insult, and it is one that has been used against many peoples in the past. So it's not surprising that people in the 19th century who saw themselves as superior to their medieval ancestors would make this claim too. As one historian called it, the Middle Ages were, quote, 1,000 years without a bath, unquote. However, we have a lot of evidence that medieval people took baths and tried to keep themselves clean. Taking baths was widely viewed as a way to keep healthy, and one could find public bathhouses in practically every town. If you've ever played the highly underrated but excellent game, Kingdom Come Deliverance, of which there's going to be a sequel coming out in February 2025 that I'm completely stoked for, you'll know this. There are bathhouses everywhere, and it's a very fun thing to visit in the game. Bathhouses in practically every town. 13th century Paris, for instance, had 32 bathhouses, while one 11th century writer claimed that Baghdad had 60,000. He was probably exaggerating. Medieval people also made use of many other grooming devices. Combs were particularly popular. While toothbrushes did exist in medieval China, you could not find them in Europe at this time. Instead, people cleaned their teeth with a cloth and sometimes used natural remedies to make sure their teeth remained white and their breath fresh. They would use cloths, and there was other types of wood, like sticks you could use to, take the place of a toothbrush. Number 13. That witch trials were common in the Middle Ages. There is a bit of truth to this one, but it is wildly exaggerated. Up to the 14th century, the idea of witches and witchcraft was pretty much unknown in the medieval world. However, as the medieval period came to an end, the idea began to emerge that people were using dark magic and working with demons. We do have records of witch trials taking place, and even books like Maleficarum being written that spoke of the dangers of witchcraft. However, it was between the 16th and 18th centuries that European and North American societies became absorbed in the witchcraft craze, and it was during this time that tens of thousands of people were killed as suspected witches. Yeah. Fear of witches and witchcraft remains with us today. It is likely that more people have been condemned and killed for witchcraft in the 21st century than were in the entire Middle Ages. I'd say maybe 20th and 21st century. We're not that far into the 21st century, but okay. Number 14, that all medieval people were extremely pious and obeyed the church. While many people in the Middle Ages were pious and even extremely devout, we can find that the church officials were often complaining that many other people were indifferent to following religious practices. We can also find that even peasants had their own ideas about religion, which diverged from the official church teachings. And that among theologians, there was a lot of debate over many issues. Like today, some medieval people had strong beliefs, while others were less so. Number 15, that medieval people ate rotten meat. This particular myth is not that old. It started in 1939 with the publication of The Englishman's Food, 5 Centuries of English Diet. The authors were not experts in medieval food, but had read that in 14th century London, there were laws against selling rotten meat. For some reason, they saw this as proof that the people were eating lots of rotten meat. They also misunderstood a recipe from 1594, and that was all the evidence they needed to claim that people were using spices as a way to mask the smell of rotten meat. Spices, which included very expensive items imported from across the medieval world, were widely used for the same reason people use them today. They added to the flavor. If medieval people, especially the wealthy, can be blamed for one thing, it was that they liked to create very elaborate recipes. In other words, they liked to cook. They really did. They just weren't great at recording their recipes, but there were wild presentations for food that wouldn't even be eaten. It was just like a showpiece, and then you'd get some actual edible food on the side. Onward. Number 16, that medieval battle was just a big brawl. It seems that every movie about the Middle Ages will feature a big battle scene, and invariably it will have two sides charge at each other and have a massive fight. It becomes a free-for-all where every individual pairs off against another person, and even the leaders will somehow manage to do battle with each other. In reality, medieval warfare had a lot of strategy and tactics, and armies fought as groups with coordination. Moreover, large-scale battles were somewhat rare in the Middle Ages, and armies were more accustomed to sieges and raiding. Also, there would be skirmishes, sometimes between, a group of 4 people against a group of 4 people. And they would just, run into each other and say, hey, you're wearing the other gang's colors. Let's fucking scrap. And so they would scrap for a few minutes and then go on their merry way. And then they would go back and say, oh, we had a major skirmish out in the woods. Let's put this into the record, because they wanted a good record so they could leave a lofty legacy. That's where a lot of these big battle stories came from, were just little scraps out in the woods. Anyway, number 17, that each medieval society was homogeneous and people did not mix. There is the idea that if you went to one country in the Middle Ages, the only people you would meet were from that place. In other words, only English people lived in England, or only Egyptians lived in Egypt. A closer look at the sources, as well as genetic evidence, paints a different picture. Throughout the Middle Ages, people moved around, sometimes as individuals and sometimes as entire groups. While often this happened because of war and slavery, it also could happen because of people looking for better opportunities. Large cities in the medieval world were often very diverse and with people regularly arriving from distant lands. Here we go, the home stretch, number 18, that medieval knights followed a set of rules called chivalry. One of the most popular images of the Middle Ages is that of the knight on horseback wielding his lance or sword. It is said that they practiced something called chivalry, which meant that they served their lord, protected women, and fought bravely. While there was such a thing as chivalry, it was an evolving term that meant different things at different times. Some knights wrote about striving towards certain ideals, but it is best to view them as military men who fought because that was their profession. Number 19, that the medieval church was evil. It is very fashionable these days to see politicians, especially those who don't share your political beliefs, as corrupt and even evil. While having a healthy skepticism of those who wield power is generally a good thing, it can be taken too far. This seems to be the case when it comes to depictions of the medieval Catholic Church. In movies and video games, a character who is a pope, bishop, or even a priest is also always depicted negatively, often the main villain. Part of this stems from the view that the church was anti-science, anti-progress, and generally just seeking to enrich themselves. While it is true that we can find many cases where medieval religious officials were corrupt and criminals, that doesn't mean that everyone was. Overall, people within the church were sincere believers in their faith and strove to improve society. What I say at the start, people are people now, people have always been people. I personally believe that most people generally want good, want peace, want, balance, because feeling bad feels bad. Anyway, on to number 20. And this one, I hate it when they say this shit. It's the plague doctor with that long crow-like mask. The plague doctor thing, it was not medieval. That is anachronistic. Number 20, that medieval doctors wore a strange outfit. Among the costumes offered at Halloween is, quote-unquote, medieval plague doctor. It is a weird and somewhat scary-looking outfit with thick leather covering the body and a mask that has a large beak. The descriptions for it say that during the Middle Ages, doctor would wear this when the Black Death struck Europe in the mid-14th century. It was supposed to be their protection from the plague, because in the cone of the mask, it said they would stuff a bunch of aromatics, herbs, flowers, stuff like that. No one ever wore such a thing in the Middle Ages. This outfit was first written about and drawn in the 17th century. It may have been used by some doctors in northern Italy and France for a short time, but it soon became something mocked and derided. However, its weirdness has kept it as a popular costume, and gradually people began associating it with the Middle Ages. When looking at our myths about the Middle Ages, one big theme emerges: that our modern society really wants to see ourselves as different and better than previous generations. We want to believe that we are smarter and more quote-unquote civilized than medieval people. So it makes it easy for us to accept information that depicts them as dumb, dirty, and cruel. One hopes that after reading this, you will not believe everything you read about the Middle Ages. Well, that's it, folks. There's 20 myths about the Middle Ages and a little rant from me about a few different things. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you learned something new. I hope you learned something new. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope you stick around for the bonus episode and all the other 100 plus bonus episodes that you can get access to by becoming a patron at patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to catch you next time. Bye.